weeks. Okay, welcome back, folks. This is the Oregon Reference Summit 2023. We're glad you're here. I'm Lori Moore. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Workforce Development Library at Multnomah County Library. I'll be your moderator for this session. So for the participants, just take a moment to make sure you're muted. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat. We'll keep our eye on that. And then we will have time at the end for questions. Either we'll read them from the chat, but you can also raise your hand and ask out loud if you choose to do it that way. So our next presentation will be Empowering Pro Se Litigants with our presenters, Emily Donnellan and Melissa Beer from the State Law Library. This will be a 50-minute session with the Q&A. So Emily and Melissa, it's all yours.
Hey everybody, we're glad to have you. As she already introduced, we're Emily Donnellan. I also use she, her pronouns, and my co-presenter today is Melissa Beer, also uses she, her. You wanna?
So just a little overview of what we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about what it means to be a pro se patron, the legal system structure, types of legal resources, free legal resources, the State of Oregon Law Library free resources, evaluating legal websites, and when to refer a patron to a professional. Again, thank you for attending today.
So what is a pro se litigant? A pro se is anybody that is coming before the court that does not have a lawyer and does not have legal training. So this applies to a large range of people, not just inmates or not just, people in family law. You can be a pro se inmate, pro se litigant at any point in the process. And 86% of cases, so from 2019 to 2021, they did a little survey. And 86% of family law cases, at least one party was unrepresented at the time of judgment. So that is at the very end of the process. And then another study said that from 2000 to 2019, DOJ found that 91% of petitions filed by prisoners in the federal district courts, this is throughout the United States, were pro se, and 94% of immigration cases, there was nobody represented by counsel. An attorney in Grants Pass actually said, I kind of feel terrible when going up against pro se litigants. It's an unfair fight. I follow the rules, but they don't even know what those rules are.
Which brings us to the problem. There is a pro se justice gap in Oregon. More people than ever before are representing themselves in court proceedings, but the legal system is tough to navigate and uses language that is difficult to understand. So the question is, how can we help patrons overcome these issues so they are able to have their fair day in court?
We're going to discuss first the structure of the legal system and kind of why that in itself is a challenge for pro se litigants. The US system is actually based on the English common law system, which has roots from 1066. In a common law system, decisions are case-based, so facts specific. And then those decisions that are fact specific can then be used as precedent or binding authority in later rulings by the court. Back in the day, there used to be you would go to the meeting at the village elder's house and they would kind of work you through a problem. And then you could say, hey, but you ruled this way in this other case, and then go, you're right, I did, good point. And so that's sort of the roots of our justice system. We have three sources of law. First and foremost are statutes. This is kind of what you think of when you think of laws. This is anything that comes out of the legislature, case law, which comes out of the courts. Some patrons I think there's a lot of people that come in and go, oh, I just want a case. Well, that's case law. And then, of course, equally important, but nobody really thinks about it, are administrative regulations. And so this is stuff that comes out of the executive's rulemaking power. We have dual kind of two paths. So there's the federal court path, and then there's the state court path. The federal court can only hear certain types of cases. There's actually 8 types. They're mostly disputes between states. The amount of controversy is over 75,000. We've got 2 people from different states. If it's any question about the Constitution, if there's suits against the federal government, those are only going to be heard in federal court. If there's any foreign governments or treaty rights, so anything that's based on tribal law or Native American law is going to go automatically to federal court. Of course, anything with admiralty, and then anything involving U.S. diplomats. So that is all the federal court can hear. Everything else goes to state court. And so state court is where you're going to see a lot of cases filed. And of course, I've circled both here, the circuit courts and the district courts, because those are the two courts that are actually going to hear the most. They're our trial court level. And so anything that comes out of that trial court level is going to be smaller because it's appellate. And then once you're in your intermediate court, then you're going to go up to that Supreme Court. And so the Supreme Courts hear very few cases. The majority of the lawmaking and the cases get heard at that district court level. Rules on rules on rules. Okay, so pro se patron, just to get in the door, we've already had to determine using the three sources of law, what law has been violated, that there is, what's happened. Then we have to choose the correct court to file in so that the court has the authority to even redress that issue. And then now the pro se patron has to know all of these rules. Every single one of these rules have to be followed, or else their case is going to be dismissed. And I think that that's where pro se patrons have the hardest time, is these rules on rules on rules. And they have no way of knowing what these rules are, or even knowing that these rules exist until they get into court.
So how can we help? The way librarians always have, by providing resources and a kind ear, and knowing when to refer a pro se litigant to an attorney.
There's been a great shift in the last 10 years with government legal information becoming more readily available online, and the creation of databases with material that had previously never been digitized or made available. This means that all three sources of law, those three that we talked about, can be viewed by anyone, but interpreting those laws is left up to the individual.
So remember, there are two types of legal resources: primary and secondary, three which we talked about at the beginning. One of the best ways to begin legal research is to look through your secondary sources. Secondary sources explain and interpret those primary sources. Secondary sources are materials that discuss, explain, analyze, and critique the law. They discuss the law, but not the law itself. The way the term primary resource is used in law is somewhat different than what you would hear in academia. When I first started this position, I was like, oh, primary sources. That must be what you go to first. Not the case in the law. In the law, you always want to start with secondary, and that'll take you to the primary.
Unfortunately, there is no one legal resource to kind of rule them all. There are two types. There's commercial websites, which is what you think of when you think of Westlaw and Lexis. They keep a lot of data, but even these resources don't really have everything. And Westlaw and Lexis cost a lot of money. It's small law firms can't afford these, and definitely not pro se litigants. In regard to free online resources, like I said, government and private are the two main. So government websites are obviously going to focus on materials that are court, agency, or group specifics. Usually data that they're already tasked with maintaining, they'll make available online. But a private site is going to collect whatever is available for free across the worldwide internet, and then compile it kind of all into one page on their own database. These free legal resources, there's no annotations, no head notes. There's, to guide, you can't really guide your reading or help you determine what's applicable in the broader legal context. There's just basically searching, browsing, and like I said, it's primarily, there's just not a lot of great stuff. There's not a lot of stuff in one spot, is I think what I'm trying to say here. So I just mentioned that there's two types of sites, that government and that free. First, we'd like to cover Oregon-specific government resources. So statutes, these Oregon revised statutes are the laws that are passed by the legislature, and they're available on the legislature and the archives website. The current edition is available online right there up there at the top, 2021. So they are published, the code is published every other year in odd numbered years. Then the 2019 to 1999 is available. And then an even older archive is available from 1997 to 1953. Pre-1953 is not online. And actually it's kind of hard. It could be kind of hard and difficult to read because you have to get the reviser's notes, which tells you, hey, this is what the new number is. What was the old number? And then we can look in older than 1953 statutes to find what the law was at the time. Session laws are also available online going back to 1999. Pre-1999 requests, I often pull those from Hein Online. Hein Online does have a full run. Next up, we were going to talk about administrative laws. The Secretary of State Archives is the public records administrator for Oregon, which is really cool. So they preserve acts of the legislature, any state agency records, and publish the Oregon administrative rules, which is where this screenshot is from. The admin rules are browsable on their website by chapter, specific rule number, or you can search with rule language. I'm not a huge fan of that one, but that's, I think our librarian brains are very trained to table of contents. So I like browsing that way better on here. The SOS also has compilations for the Oregon administrative rules going back to 2018 on the website. The State of Oregon Law Library in our print collection has been going back to 1997, which is about the time that most other libraries have them as well. For the Supreme Court and Court of Appeals, for that case law making from our three sources of law, we publish our advance sheets on our main website. Once it's ready for that next phase, which is a bound volume, you take it from advance sheet into a bound volume, and then it goes on the shelf. So once it's ready to go to that bound volume, we take it off of this advanced sheets website and we keep it on our sole digital archive, which is through Content DM. For trial court level documents, so this is great for Court of Appeals and Supreme Court level stuff. For those trial court level documents, you're going to use a website called OJD Online Records Search. And you can use that from anywhere, but if your pro se patron does not have access to the internet, each court, so anywhere there is a circuit court throughout Oregon, you can view this information as well. They've got a terminal to view that with. And that's going to be those trial court level documents that I was talking about, like where the most of the work gets done. That's going to be on that OJD record search.
And we have Oregon case law available through Content DM on our website, which publishes the opinions of the Oregon Court of Appeals and the opinions of the Oregon Supreme Court.
So the internet can be overwhelming, but we don't want you to feel overwhelmed when you're finding free legal resources. So we're going to share the top 5 websites that you can visit when you're actually going to be, working through a question with a patron and trying to locate legal information.
So that's right. Over the next few slides, we're going to discuss some of the free big players in the game of free legal research. These are good websites to point your patrons to when they have law questions, and they're free anywhere there's internet available.
Yeah. So Google Scholar Case Law has gotten so good. This website was not really great 10 years ago. They had very scarce content, and what the content they had was from like the 1800s. I could never find anything recent. That has all changed though, and I'm very happy that I got to kind of delve further into this again. You can now search a variety of courts in different jurisdictions. As you can see, they have both state and federal, and then they further split it out too. So even state, you're not just searching the Oregon Supreme Court, you're searching, well, I want Supreme Court or I want Court of Appeals. So you actually get that choice. My big complaint with this website though, is that they don't do a scope note. And so I can't tell what content they're even searching, but that's kind of par for the Google course. So I guess it didn't surprise me. Still really great. And I love to send patrons to this resource when they'll reach out to the reference desk and they'll say, well, I have a citation. I want to view this case citation. Okay, Google's got you covered. Go to Google Scholar Case Law. You're ready to go. I want to do a plain language search. Okay, Google Scholar Case Law is a great place to start. And they don't need to sign up for anything. It's already there and it's already available. Another great site is Justia. They provide the community with open and free access to the law. Their website mission says that they strongly believe that the law belongs to all of us and everyone should have access to the law. Now, to support this mission, which I agree is very critical and very relevant, they support it with free law initiatives. Justia helps law firms grow their practice by offering premium marketing solutions. So you kind of are seeing where the information is. They're providing this information for free, but in order to do that, they have to kind of either have more ads or have something sponsored. That being said, they've got a lot of good content on here that's pretty much freely available. I mean, they have the statutes going back to 2005, which is decent. I think their case law is good, not great, but good. I like that they have tax court decisions. I think that's one that often gets forgotten when we're talking about case law. This is the Cornell Legal Information Institute. I've been using this website since I was in law school over 10 years ago. Aw, yeah, it's going to be a while. This website has like been absolutely reliable for me that whole time though, and I love it because it's organized like you can just tell a librarian organized it. You know, when information is really easy to find and really intuitive, that's what I find on Cornell. So a lot of it is drill down menus. So you're like, well, I want to go to the federal rules of evidence, and then I need chapter 8, and then I need rule 805. You can very easily find stuff and still know where you're at within the law on this website. And they're trying to move into the AI area. And so I'm very interested to see kind of what their changes are going to be next.
Next up is FindLaw. And FindLaw is helpful for quick information. You can find up-to-date decisions from the United States Supreme Court on this website. One disadvantage is some of the Oregon Code information was last updated in 2018. The federal information is more current than state level information, so that's kind of good to know if you ever try to use FindLaw. And since it's owned by Thomson Reuters, it's trying to sign you up for Westlaw, which is their mega big buck product that they're trying to sell you.
Yeah, I kind of think of FindLaw as that little hook you in, like you're like, hey, you found some good stuff, right? How about you sign on for Westlaw for the full thing?
Exactly.
But it's still good to have because it is available. This is the Harvard Case Law Project, Case Law Access Project. This is actually new to me, so I'd kind of heard about it through the grapevine, but I hadn't gotten the chance to play with it enough. And it's kind of fun. This is one of those like newer, more interactive websites. This map that you're actually seeing right here, you can click into each jurisdiction and it'll pop out the jurisdiction and tell you what they have. I love that. They give you the scope note right up front, and then you can go in and further dig through that information. I love the colors. I love that they're trying to make the case law more available. I think that they're going to do a lot. Obviously, it's Harvard backed, so they've got some money, and I'm interested to see how this website, I think the Harvard Case Law Access Project and Cornell Legal Information Institute are two to watch as we're looking at kind of the trend for free legal access online. Now that we've shown you what's available on government websites, what's available on public websites, we'd also like to share what's available from the State of Oregon Law Library. These are just the tools that we're able to provide the public online. We've got stuff that we can provide in the library. For example, we have Hein Online access, Lexis access, Westlaw access, all of those through our public terminals, but that's not something I'm able to provide online completely. Our contracts don't allow for it. So we just wanted to talk about what's available to all Oregonians throughout the state, since we're not sure where everyone is from. The State of Oregon Law Library bar books. I absolutely love bar books. They are so cool. So they're written by Oregon attorneys for other attorneys, and they actually go deep into every single area of law. So if you have a family law question, for example, it'll talk about, dissolution of marriage, child issues, any other thing that you can kind of think of that's like bar books related. And then at the end, they have forms. So you can send your person to one spot and say, hey, look at these bar books. So definitely one to check out. I also love that you can download, like once you're like in there, you can download a full PDF and then make highlights on that. So you don't have to keep coming back to the website. You can save it for yourself and then access it in the future. My only complaint with the bar books is they switched to a new login system, and now we have to do tokens. So to get a token, you actually have to email us, but I guess that's like a small step to having great access to this resource.
Next up is
Sorry, Melissa.
That's all right.
I wanted to mention that AICs now with the Department of Corrections have access to bar books. So that's something the State of Oregon Law Library recently negotiated, and we're finally able to offer that.
Just totally awesome. So our next one is Fast Case, which is when a patron wants to look up a case. This is a really good resource for that. It includes the United States Code, United States Supreme Court, and the Court of Appeal cases, state cases, statutes, regulations, court rules, constitutions, attorney general opinions, and session laws. Fast Case only covers information from Oregon, Alaska, Arizona, California, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, and Washington. And the next one is the NOLO Legal Information Reference Center, and it provides full text access to legal reference books. You may have copies of NOLO books in your collections, but this is through the State of Oregon Law Library, and it's free to Oregon citizens. You can access them with a library account. The most popular topics include wills, renter rights, divorce outside of a court, and marriage visas. One topic I thought was funny is the ebook titled, Beat Your Ticket, Go to Court and Win. We recommend this resource often to our patrons.
I kind of refer to those two often as like the law books for dummies. So if you just want like the For Dummies series, NOLO makes that. They're written in plain English. Next, we're going to segue into evaluating websites. You're all librarians, but we wanted to show you why legal research resources can kind of be a little bit almost difficult to navigate, especially for pro se patrons. When I evaluate websites, I've always used this criteria: accuracy, authority, currency, the coverage that's covered, and then objectivity. Why are they giving me this information? And if it's free, why is it free?
As you know, Google is information overload. So I did a simple search on how do I get out of a criminal case, and the top results were always articles that were housed on lawyer websites. So I decided to go a little deeper into this one, which is hd.org. The next one. So I looked at the website and I was like, this looks like it's got a lot of good information, but the articles don't have authors attached to them. So I decided to look up the founder of hd.org, and he is Steve McGarry, and this is his LinkedIn page. And he creates databases of lawyers for a fee. So if you're a lawyer, you pay him a fee, he'll put you in this database. He really highlights the fact that that it's the biggest subscription legal site with more than 10 million views. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to provide lawyer information, but the website makes you think that providing the information is for free when really there's a bias towards hiring HD lawyers from the database. So you can see, this is when I did my search, this is what came up. So it's like, oh, how to get a criminal case dismissed. It goes in through a lot of good information, but then you'll see sprinkled around this page is, need a lawyer, click here. Need a lawyer, click here. Search for legal articles here. Go find a lawyer. So this is just an example of how easy a patron could easily become overwhelmed and confused. In this next slide, we'll discuss when to seek professional advice.
So I've got a little hypo for you. A pro se patron comes in and tells you they've now lost custody of their kids. They're going through an eviction in their rental unit, and their car was towed a week ago. They're probably crying and they want you to help immediately. This patron is already overloaded. They've probably done all of the Google searching they can, and they're just lost. This person, we want to help them, right? But they really need to be referred back to the court or a law library, because we have specific, like, we know what resources they need for these, like, I think eviction's a good example. So there's a couple of different stays that they can file, but without us kind of pointing them to those stays, they're not going to know about them, and they're not going to know that they exist. And so that's sort of you might have been evicted, but there are other options. And so the court can kind of walk you through those options, and the law library has access to those as well. When in doubt, if I'm feeling nervous, I refer. So I am an attorney, And I still refer people to other attorneys because I know that I don't know everything and I don't know all about a particular area of law. It could be far outside of my scope. If I get a huge property matter, I don't know. I practiced contract law before becoming a law librarian. So it's just out of my wheelhouse. So when I'm in doubt or my brain is going, I'm not quite sure, I refer to an attorney. You know how, doctors kind of do that do no harm kind of I sort of think of law librarians the same way. I don't want them to leave the law library in a worse place than where they came in. I'd like them to leave with at least the next step, and then hopefully we're able to get the ball rolling. I also refer when the information I'm finding requires me to make an inference. If I have to guess, I don't want to guess. So if you inference, refer. If the patron is saying that they're concerned about a deadline, like they're going to be evicted in 3 days, refer immediately. Maybe they have a deadline or an appearance that they're making in court. Definitely refer. If a deadline's missed in court, that could be the patron's last chance. So their case could be dismissed with prejudice, or they could be held in contempt. There's a lot of different things that can happen. So we want to make sure nobody's going to miss a deadline. And remember, never ever give legal advice. That's, I think, the biggest one. So we can be held liable if you're providing legal advice or holding yourself out to be an authority. I don't have malpractice insurance, so I'm not serving as anyone's attorney in my capacity as a reference librarian.
Not at all. So this is one of the guides that we use up at the ref desk to kind of help us decide, does this feel like legal reference or does this feel like law advice? One of the most common things that I've noticed is people come in and like, where are my forms? Well, you can show them where a form may be housed or a book section where forms are. You can't help them fill out a form, and you can't say, this is the exact legal form that you need to fill out.
Yeah, I actually had a patron. One of those legal advice says, write a brief, prepare a will, or draft a document. I think that we get this question a lot. I had a gal ask if she could privately contract my services to write a brief for her, like if I'd like to moonlight as a brief writer. So patrons will try and I think that they mean well, but sometimes they'll overstep into an area where it's legal advice and you have to kind of remove yourself from that situation.
I think that's hard as a librarian for you to not be able to say, here is exactly what you're looking for. That you kind of, in this world, you have to be like, here's the direction you should go in. It may help you out.
Nice. That's why I love those bar books so much.
Right?
One stop shop.
Great.
Let me give you a second.
And we want you to know that we are here for you. You can email us, you can call us, you can write us if you want, which brings us to adults in custody. Throughout the state of Oregon, we help them by providing them access to Westlaw, which is a recent thing, and also bar books, which will be super helpful. The letters that we do get are a lot of times information that was available on Westlaw, so it's nice to be able to teach them how to use that resource now. They're mostly looking for law journals as well if they write us a letter, so we can provide those as well. So if you get a letter from an AIC at your library, you can forward it to us through email or by address, and we'll take care of it for you.
We keep a large spreadsheet too of AICs that are kind of regular writers. So usually if you've gotten a letter, we've probably also gotten a letter. And so this kind of helps too with that duplication. We don't want all of us to be doing the same work.
So now if there's any questions we can answer, feel free to unmute or write in the chat.
Yeah, I know we went kind of fast, so.
We did. Sorry about that. It was too fast.
Oh, yeah, I got some bar books love in here. That makes me so happy in the comments.
So we've got a question from, it looks like Paula J has her hand up.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we we had back in the day prior to COVID, a wonderful referral resource. I work for Multnomah County Library, and we had the Multnomah Law Library that was located at the courthouse. And they were happy to provide resources to folks. We built a new courthouse in Multnomah County, and there was the COVID situation. Those two things kind of happened at about the same time. And my understanding is that they no longer help folks who are non-legally trained people. People have to be members of the bar. So do you have any other resources that you can recommend that would be good referrals for our patrons locally?
Yeah, so I did also hear that the Multnomah County Law Library is no longer accepting any kind of non-lawyers, but there is the legal information. Is it Legal Resource Reference Center? Please correct me on the name, but it
Legal
is at the
information.
courthouse. And I want to say it's like the 6th floor. I can't get the floor right, but they do have a law librarian there, as well as public terminals still at the courthouse. And so you're able to access Westlaw from there because we share Westlaw. And then, yes, the Legal Resource Center. And so they're still downtown, even if the Multnomah County Law Library isn't accessible.
Great, thank you.
And the URL for that Legal Resource Center was just shared in the chat for everyone.
Thank you for that.
This is Lee with the Washington County Law Library, and I just want to add real quick that if the Legal Resource Center can't help someone, and I know they, despite the claims that were made when they started, they have very limited services. The Clackamas County Law Library and the Washington County Law Library are both proximate to Portland.
That's awesome. Are you off the Max line by chance?
Yes, the Washington County Law Library is at the end of the Max line.
So that's awesome.
This is Brittany Young. I'm the Lane County Law Librarian. And I just saw Jennifer mentioned Answerland, which yes, Answerland is awesome. And you totally can do legal questions in there. But some of the counties do have law libraries and law librarians that you can speak to. And I don't want to speak for all of the other law librarians, but the ones that I know so far in my year and a half being a law librarian, we are happy to help other counties patrons too. So if you want to give us a call or email us, we're here to help.
Aw. Yeah, there is actually a county law library guide too. If you just Google Oregon County Law Libraries too, so you can find the law library that's the closest referral to you. I'll agree with Brady. I've been a law librarian for almost 10 years now, and we're just librarians in general are warm and welcoming people that are excited to help.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful and informative. Any other questions? Good use of time. We're done quite early on this, so I'll give it a minute to see if there are any questions. Looks like there's some information sharing in the chat as well.
That's great. And we did kind of just do a high level overview. If you have more specific questions, we're always excited to answer them in that state law library. That's our reference box that goes to all of us. If you have any questions that are like kind of more specific or questions about services.
Oops.
Share that too to everyone.
Great, thank you. That was really helpful and informative. So I will stop recording now.